That house sold for $400,000. So I'm going on a trip abroad. With my lover. Ha ha ha.
Hearing his overly cheerful voice, I couldn't help but ask in disbelief. Huh? When he called during my hospital stay, he said,
I sold the house for $400,000.
I couldn't understand. That house was important, inherited from my father. And to boast about going on a trip abroad with his lover? That's just insane. What are you talking about? What's going to happen to Victoria if you sell the house? When I asked about our daughter, he unbelievably said,
Ha! That brat. Ha ha.
Dismissing her.
She's always had this disrespectful attitude. I've found her annoying for a while. Of course, I'm leaving her behind. Ha ha.
To speak like that about his own daughter? I was so angry. The house sold, and now he's announcing a trip with his lover. I felt like I was losing my mind. I must stop Keith. Even if the house is sold, it can't be handed over immediately. I must do whatever it takes to stop him. I am Erin Walters, a 39-year-old housewife. My husband Keith, turning 40 this year, and our 9-year-old daughter Victoria would make a happy family of 3. But things aren't great with Keith. Even since our marriage, Keith's personality has worsened, and for about a year, he seems to be having an affair. Without evidence, I couldn't do anything, but Keith doesn't even try to hide his affair. Working in a parts manufacturing plant, he spends 4 or 5 nights a week out drinking after work. I'm not sure if he's with colleagues, but he didn't go out this often before. Returning home, Keith would smell a particular perfume and sometimes prepare extravagant bags and shoes as gifts. Obviously, these gifts weren't for me, and he would happily leave with them. This is definitely an affair, but even if I confront him, I don't know what to do next. I, being timid, still haven't been able to take any action or gather evidence of his infidelity. Now he's nothing like the Keith I met. We met 10 years ago and married after a year of dating. Keith was always a gentleman and incredibly kind. I fell in love with him. He proposed on our first anniversary, and soon we were married and had Victoria. To others, we must have seemed very happy. Yet, how did it come to this? The trouble started when Victoria turned 1, needing more attention and exploring everything in the house, making parenting even more demanding. As a full-time housewife, I spent my days with Victoria, but I often needed Keith's help after he returned from work, like bathing her or feeding her. At first, Keith helped as I asked, probably feeling it was his duty as a father. But as I became a daily routine, he seemed bothered and gradually avoided parenting duties.
Look, I've been thinking. You're a full-time housewife, so you should handle the kid alone. Why do I have to help? I come home tired from work.
Angrily complaining, Keith left Victoria and me in the living room and went straight to the bedroom. During Victoria's terrible twos, even dressing her in pajamas was a struggle. Keith's words hurt me deeply. Since then, Keith has almost entirely stopped interacting with Victoria. On days when Keith Walters was off work, even when Victoria asked, "Daddy, play with me," he would say, while looking at the horse racing newspaper,
"That's Mom's job. Play with Mom. Daddy's busy right now."
He never really listened to Victoria's requests. When Victoria started crying and protesting, Keith snapped at us with a glare.
Hey, crying over something like this. What kind of parenting are you doing, Erin? You're a full-time housewife and still useless. Ha ha ha.
Not wanting Victoria to see Keith's behavior or hear his harsh words, I had no choice but to go back to our room and play with her. Of course, I often wished for a time to enjoy my hobbies, like reading and watching movies. However, my life was so dedicated to Victoria that I had almost no time for myself. Yet Keith immersed himself in his hobby, gambling, and I was the one who had to listen to his harsh words. It was unfair. But as we were living on Keith's sole income, I couldn't complain. Without him, I wouldn't have been able to raise Victoria alone. I felt frustrated and powerless with myself. Those days continued, with Keith remaining uninvolved in parenting, living as he pleased. 8 years have passed since then, and Victoria is now 9 years old. Keith's attitude and verbal abuse continue, and his kind demeanor from before our marriage is nowhere to be seen. As for me, I continued being married to Keith, just trying not to anger him and focusing solely on raising Victoria properly. One day, while drawing pictures with Victoria, she suddenly said, "You should make drawing your job, Mom. You're so good at it." "Huh? Drawing? As a job?" "Yes, your drawings are so gentle and lovely." Victoria said this while smiling and looking at the animal illustrations I had drawn. Actually, I've always enjoyed drawing and even aspired to be a manga artist at one point. Though I gave up on that challenging path, I still drew illustrations as a hobby. "I always show your drawings to Lucy and Emily and brag about them. They say they're amazing. They're envious of having a mom who can draw like you." Despite having a father like Keith with such a mean character, Victoria grew up to be an honest and kind child. She's outgoing and the opposite of me, who's more reserved. She seems to have many friends at school and is also cherished by her teacher. Knowing that Victoria takes pride in my drawings made me feel proud. Her support gave me confidence. "That makes me happy. Thank you, Victoria." As I said this, Victoria smiled brightly again. Seeing her happy, I felt I could still endure this life. That night, Keith came home drunk again and collapsed onto the living room sofa. He was inebriated, as usual. Lately, it had become the norm for him to come home drunk. Sighing, I took off his jacket and searched his pockets. "Huh? What's this?" In his pocket, where he usually only kept keys, I found a piece of paper and stared at it. It was a receipt, clearly from a hotel, as I could tell from the name on it. Oh, this is definitely evidence. I had suspected Keith's infidelity, but now I had solid proof. Trying to calm my agitated feelings, I quietly put the receipt in the drawer and began to think about how to confront Keith. The next morning, still half drunk, Keith left the house. After Victoria went to school, I was doing the usual household chores, but I couldn't stop thinking about the receipt. I had noticed Keith's infidelity, but hadn't confronted him. That was my decision. But now, with solid evidence in hand, it seemed impossible to overlook his infidelity and continue our strained marriage with a straight face. I hoped to get Keith to admit his infidelity and apologize within a week or a few days. But how? What should I do? As I was pondering this, my smartphone started ringing. Who could it be at this time? It was unusual to receive a call in the middle of the day. The number on the smartphone screen was unfamiliar. Feeling an indescribable premonition, I answered the phone.
"Hello, is this the phone number of a family member of Keith Walters?"
"Yes, it is. Keith Walters is my husband. Who might this be?"
"My apologies. This is from XX General Hospital. Actually about Keith."
The call was from a doctor at the biggest general hospital in the area. According to the doctor, Keith had been brought in by ambulance and was undergoing kidney surgery. Moreover, they informed me that he would likely need a kidney transplant as his kidney was probably damaged beyond repair. I was speechless at the sudden news, but the doctor kindly asked, "Are you alright?" "Yes, I am. Can a kidney transplant be done?"
"Yes, we will start looking for a donor immediately. If we find one, transplant surgery is possible."
I see. I was shocked and confused to learn that Keith needed a kidney transplant for such a serious condition, but the doctor continued to explain the procedure.
"For now, we will check the compatibility of potential donors. Thank you for your cooperation."
I understood only about half of what the doctor said, but I grasped that Keith was in a serious condition due to his illness. No matter how little Keith had cared for Victoria and me, or the fact that he was having an affair, I didn't wish for his death. I wanted him to survive. My mind was occupied with thoughts of Keith's kidney transplant all night. After a few weeks, we found out about the compatibility of family donors for Keith's kidney transplant. Surprisingly, I had the highest compatibility rate. Keith's parents were still alive but were in no condition to undergo transplant surgery due to their illnesses and poor health. As Keith was an only child and I was healthy with a matching blood type, it turned out I was the best match. Hearing the results, I hesitated, but I knew Keith's life should be the priority, so I decided to become the donor for Keith's kidney transplant. When I explained Keith's condition and my decision to be a donor to Victoria, she said, "Mom, be strong and take care." During my hospitalization as a donor, Victoria would stay with my in-laws. Despite their illness, they were able to take care of her at their home. Victoria was happy to go to her grandparents' house, as she was fond of them. This will be alright for a while. I was relieved that Victoria was such a kind and responsible child. With this peace of mind, I was able to go through with the transplant surgery. About a week later, after health examinations and signing the consent form, I underwent surgery as a donor for Keith's kidney transplant. The surgery was surprisingly quick, and I was hospitalized for a week while Keith stayed for about 10 days. The recovery went smoothly, and I didn't experience any significant health issues. The day before I was to be discharged, my smartphone rang. Wondering who it could be, I answered the call and heard a familiar voice.
Ah, it's me.
It was Keith. I thought it must be a call to thank me for being the donor. It's been a while. How are you feeling after the surgery? I expected him to say something like, I'm feeling better because you were the donor. Thank you so much. But what I heard was completely unexpected.
About our house?
He paused for a moment, surprised by the sudden shift to talking about our house without any thanks. I froze and listened to what Keith had to say.
I sold it for $400,000. So, I'm going on a trip abroad. With my lover, that is.
Hearing his overly cheerful voice, I couldn't help but ask in disbelief. Huh? He called me while I was still hospitalized to say,
I sold the house for $400,000.
I couldn't understand. That was the important house I inherited from my father. Moreover, for him to proudly announce that he's going on a trip abroad with his lover is just insane. What are you even talking about? What about Victoria if you sell the house? When I asked about our daughter, Keith said something unbelievable.
Huh, that brat.
As if mocking her.
She's always acting disrespectfully towards adults. I've always found her annoying. Of course I'm leaving her behind, haha.
How could he say such things about his own daughter? I was so angry. Not only was the house sold, but he also declared he was going on a trip with his lover. I felt like I was losing my mind. I had to stop Keith somehow. Even if the house is sold, it can't be handed over immediately. I must do something to stop this. The call abruptly ended. Confused, I wondered what had just happened. No matter how much I thought about it, selling the house so suddenly, especially while Keith and I were hospitalized, was unbelievable. The shock was so great that I became ill and couldn't get up, which extended my hospital stay for a few days. Overwhelmed with pain and distress, I lay in bed all day, pondering the future. I needed to contact Victoria right away. Without the house, Victoria and I would have nowhere to live. I was furious that Keith brazenly admitted to having a lover, but more than that, I was worried about Victoria. When I called my in-laws' house, my mother-in-law answered and soon handed the phone to Victoria. Victoria, it's Mom. I'm sorry, but my hospital stay got extended. Are you feeling lonely? Are you eating well? Are you okay? Also, it seems like Dad has sold our house. We don't have a place to live now. Worried about Victoria, I couldn't help but bombard her with questions. Then Victoria responded with a surprisingly cheerful voice. It's okay, Mom. I've already taken care of it. What? What do you mean? Dad told me. He sold the house with the help of his lover. But Grandma and Grandpa? I was confused and couldn't understand what Victoria meant by taking care of it, but she explained in detail what had happened during my hospitalization. I was astonished to learn about the unexpected developments that had taken place without my knowledge. See? Everything is fine now, so Mom, just rest well. I'm okay. That's amazing. Thank you. Even over the phone, I could sense Victoria's composure, and her words were reassuring. I finally felt at peace. Still, I wondered what had happened to Keith and his lover by now. I was curious, but I knew I needed to rest and recover quickly. I decided to go to sleep. 3 days later, fully recovered, I was discharged and headed to my in-laws' house. Welcome back, Mom. Victoria ran towards me with a joyful smile. Behind her, my father-in-law and mother-in-law were smiling warmly, saying, It's good to see you well.
That Keith, I can't forgive him. He's caused such trouble. I'm so sorry, Erin.
With a stern expression, my father-in-law apologized to me. Beside him, my mother-in-law also looked down, feeling sorry. Despite being such decent and wonderful people, I wondered how Keith could have turned out the way he did. Please, Father, it's not your fault. I'm the one who should have spoken up sooner. Please, raise your head.
Is that so? Thank you. There's something we need to tell you, Erin.
Something you need to tell me? What is it? Sitting down with my in-laws, Victoria and I listened to their story. Again, I was surprised by what they told me, but my mother-in-law's strong words, "We won't let Keith have his way," allowed me to finally feel relieved. After talking with my in-laws, Victoria and I decided to return home. On the way, in front of a real estate agency, I saw a man I recognized and a woman I didn't know arguing with the agency staff in shabby clothes. The man was unmistakably Keith. The woman next to him must surely be his lover. Keith with his messy hair and scruffy tracksuit, and his lover barefaced with a gaudy short skirt and wearing only one high heel.
What the? Do something. What am I supposed to do now? Can't believe the house isn't selling.
Hey, what about my $400,000? What's going to happen to it?
As much as you say that, we received a cancellation from the prospective buyer last night. So the contract discussion is off the table. What? What do you mean by cancellation? Damn it!
Keith was shouting out loud and looked like he might lash out at the real estate agent while his lover was screeching beside him. Passers-by were startled and everyone was looking at them. Victoria and I were also surprised, but knowing it was about us, we steeled ourselves and approached the real estate agency. What are you doing here, Keith? Startled by my sudden appearance from behind, Keith and his lover let out a strange yelp.
What the? Don't scare me like that. What are you... Oh, I get it. You did it, didn't you? You must have talked the buyer out of it.
Ew, seriously? That's like totally unbelievable. Faced with Keith and his lover's intensity, I gently moved Victoria behind me. Then, turning to the confused real estate agent, I said, "I am this man's wife." The agent gave a resigned, "Ah," in response.
It's unbelievable to cancel now. We were about to board the plane, and now we have to turn back and can't even buy a new house. Plus, I have debts from spoiling this.
Keith pointed at his lover when he said this. I see. I finally understood everything Keith had been planning. He tried to sell our house to pay off debts from lavishing his lover and to buy a new place to live with her, despite knowing it was the important house I inherited from my late father. How selfish can one man be? He didn't think about Victoria or me and was trying to take away an asset I cherished. Unforgivable. I was trembling with anger. Excuse me, but isn't the unbelievable one you?
What's this now? You think you can just show up and lecture me? You can't even eat properly without me.
Despite the desperate situation, Keith was arrogant and spewed insults, but I continued. Did you really think you can sell a house I inherited without even discussing it with me? I'm the owner of that house. Did you forge the documents? And about the buyer, you were saying all that, but did you know the buyer was supposed to be your own parents?
What?
What are you talking about? Indeed. The plan I heard from Victoria while I was in the hospital was for my in-laws to pretend to buy my house to teach Keith a lesson. My in-laws were furious after hearing everything about Keith's actions and words from Victoria. They said, "We can't forgive what he's doing to our kind daughter-in-law and cute granddaughter." My in-laws believed Victoria over their son, thanks to her kindness and honest nature. Let me explain. When I found out about Dad and his lover, Grandma and Grandpa were really angry. I told them Dad was trying to sell the house, and they said they wouldn't let him sell it so easily because it's the important house Mom's dad left for her. So they pretended to buy it before someone else did. Victoria stepped forward confidently and explained.
My own parents doing this to me. Damn old man and woman. And you acting all smart for a kid. Shows how badly you've been raised.
Keith, seemingly desperate, began to spout abusive words with a derisive laugh. Victoria faced Keith without flinching. I pulled out a piece of paper from my bag and thrust it in front of Keith. I'm sorry, but I'm divorcing you.
Divorce? Fine by me. You think you can live on your own?
Keith looked at the divorce papers and snorted with arrogance, still not losing his superior attitude. He probably thought I, a housewife, was not serious about the divorce and would be lost without him. I might have thought so before, but now I had a plan. You needn't worry. Your parents have decided to make a lifetime gift to me.
What? A lifetime gift?
What's that? Keith and his lover were both taken aback. The something I need to tell you from my father-in-law this morning was about this lifetime gift. My in-laws, suffering from health issues and unsure of their future, wanted to gift part of their assets to me before it was too late. Of course, I initially refused. The assets should go to Keith, their son. But even after I explained this, my in-laws insisted.
You're more important to us than our son, who can't even thank you for being a kidney donor. You gave birth to and raised our lovely granddaughter and have always been kind to us.
So I agreed to accept the lifetime gift from my in-laws. At this, Keith's face turned pale. That makes sense. Understandably, he was upset about the assets he expected to inherit being given to his soon-to-be ex-wife.
That's ridiculous. The assets should go to the child. I'll talk to them, and if they don't listen, I'll sue them.
Keith glared at me with anger-filled eyes and shouted. I sighed at Keith's regrettable state and decided it was time to deliver the final blow. I stepped forward, got close to Keith, and looked him straight in the eye. Still saying stupid things, Keith? It's all your fault for belittling me, ignoring Victoria, and having an affair. You're the one who spent all the money, right? My in-laws' decision is only natural. And do you even have money for a lawsuit? Even if you did, how do you think your betrayals will fare in court? Keith let out a strangled scream and collapsed. Seeing my furious face, he was trembling.
Sorry, I won't sue. Please, forgive me.
He begged desperately, but it was too late. I stared him down one last time and said, You've continually insulted me and Victoria, so you better pay every penny of the compensation and child support. If you dare say you can't pay, I'll chase you to the ends of the earth, so be prepared. Keith and his lover let out pitiful screams and ran away. The real estate agent, who had witnessed the entire exchange, seemed to collapse and said,
Thank you so much. I'm saved.
Not at all. I'm sorry for causing trouble. Excuse us. Feeling awkward, I took Victoria's hand and headed home. You were so cool, Mom. Thank you, Victoria. You were cool too. Thank you for fighting for Mom. Despite what had just happened, Victoria was smiling. I knew then I had to protect her forever. A few days later, my divorce from Keith was finalized smoothly. The long-suffering marriage ended abruptly, leaving me with mixed feelings. Why did I endure it for so long? Keith, having lavishly supported his lover, had to take out loans to pay the compensation. His lover, finding out he was broke, left him saying, I can't deal with this poor guy anymore. To add to his misfortune, Keith's company started layoffs due to a decline in sales from material shortages. He was quickly targeted and lost his job. I can't help but think he wasn't let go for no reason. Probably those with poor work performance or behavior were the first to be laid off. Given how Keith acted at home, he must have been domineering at work too. Having lost his wife, child, lover, and job, Keith is now barely getting by with part-time work. He seems to have no energy left to look for a new job, just struggling day by day. But I feel no sympathy. I've done all I could for him, even donating a kidney. For not cherishing me and Victoria, Keith is merely reaping what he sowed. He should work hard for a change. As for me, I've started a job drawing illustrations, thanks to the assets gifted by my in-laws and Victoria's encouragement about my art. Although I don't have many orders yet, my clients say my work is careful and cute. I plan to increase my orders and raise Victoria proudly until she's grown.